The briefing room on Vorthan command ship was cold and silent. Kale, 7 stood at attention as General Mora dropped a thick file onto the table. The file had one word stamped across it in red. Humans. Every soldier in the room shifted uncomfortably. Kale, 7 had heard the stories. Everyone had. Humans were considered the strange ones of the galaxy. Unpredictable. Emotional. Illogical. Other species avoided working with them when possible, not because humans were weak but because nobody could understand them. And now Kale 7 was being sent to fight alongside them. Sir, Kale 7 said carefully, is there a specific reason I was selected for this assignment? General Mora looked at him for a long moment. You ask too many questions, the general said. The humans will feel right at home with you. It was not meant as a compliment. Kale 7 picked up the file. He read through it on the transport ship. Species profile. Biological data. Combat history. Psychological evaluations. One line in the psychological section stopped him cold. Read. Humans have no recorded instance of a species-wide surrender. In every conflict studied, at least a portion of the human population continued resistance regardless of odds, resources, or logical probability of success. Kale 7 read that line 3 times. Then he stared out the window at the stars. What kind of species, he thought, does not know when it is beaten? He would spend the next year finding out. Pushpin Lesson 1. The ones who make you uncomfortable, the unpredictable ones, the emotional ones, the ones nobody understands, are sometimes the ones you need most. Do not mistake different for weak. The universe has a way of sending you exactly the teacher you were not ready for. Kale 7 arrived at Forward Base Iron 9 at 0300 hours. The base was located on Sector 9's third moon, a gray dusty rock with thin atmosphere and constant wind. 3 planets nearby had already fallen to the Kreth Empire. The enemy was close. The situation was, by any military calculation, desperate. And yet, as Kale 7 walked through the gate, he heard something completely unexpected. Laughter. Loud, genuine, unrestrained laughter, coming from around a fire where a group of human soldiers sat eating, talking, and apparently telling each other jokes in the middle of a war zone. Kale 7 stopped walking. He checked his translation device. Yes, they were laughing. Actually laughing. A female soldier spotted him first. Short dark hair. Sharp eyes. A cut on her cheek that had been poorly bandaged. She stood and walked toward him with her hand extended, another human custom he had read about. You must be our Vorthan, she said. I'm Sergeant Maya Torres. Welcome to the mess. Kale 7 shook her hand stiffly. I am Kale 7. I have been assigned to... Yeah, I got the briefing. She waved a hand. You eat? We made rice. I do not consume. Come sit anyway. It was not a question. Kale 7 found himself sitting by the fire with 12 human soldiers who were debating, with great passion, whether something called a mango was superior to something called a peach. Kale 7 said nothing for 20 minutes. He simply watched them. They were tired. He could see it in their eyes. They were scared. He could detect the biological markers of stress in several of them. They had lost people. He had seen the memorial board near the gate with too many names on it. And still they laughed. Not because things were fine, but because things were not fine, and they had chosen, consciously or not, to laugh anyway. Kale 7 did not understand it yet. But somewhere in his Vorthan chest, something stirred that he had no word for. Pushpin Lesson 2. Joy in hard times is not stupidity. It is survival. The person who can still laugh when everything is falling apart is not ignoring the pain. They are refusing to let the pain be the only thing that exists. That kind of stubbornness is not weakness. It is armor. The Kreth attacked on the 4th morning. Kale 7 was doing his pre-dawn systems check when the alarm hit. He grabbed his weapon and ran to the wall alongside the humans, and stopped when he saw what was coming. 2,000 Kreth soldiers. Moving fast. Organized. Well-armed. Kale 7's unit had 200 humans. He turned to Torres immediately. Sergeant. The tactical situation requires. We hold, she said. She was not even looking at him. Her eyes were on the horizon. The probability of successful defense at these odds is... Kale. She looked at him now. Calm. Completely, impossibly calm. I heard you. We hold. He wanted to argue. Every calculation in his mind screamed retreat. Every training protocol he had ever learned said fall back, regroup, survive. But something in her voice made him stay. The Kreth hit them like a wave. What followed was the most disorganized, chaotic, brutal, and somehow effective fighting Kale-7 had ever witnessed in his 11 years of military service. The humans did not fight cleanly. They did not fight according to any protocol Kale-7 recognized. When the east wall was breached, 3 soldiers collapsed it intentionally, trapping 20 Kreth underneath and buying time. When ammunition ran low, humans threw rocks. Actual rocks. When a communication tower was destroyed, Taurus started running between positions herself, physically delivering orders. And Corporal Dennis. Kale-7 would never forget Corporal Dennis. The large man took shrapnel to his right shoulder during the second wave. Kale-7 saw it happen, saw the impact, saw the blood. He started moving toward Dennis to assist. Dennis reached up with his other hand, pulled the fragment out, pressed his palm against the wound for exactly 4 seconds, then picked his weapon back up. "You good, Kale?" Dennis shouted at him. Kale-7 stared. "You are injured," Kale-7 said. "Yep," Dennis said. "You require medical." "After," Dennis said simply. And kept firing. "After." As if the battle was just a minor interruption between him and the medical tent. Kale-7 turned back to the fight. His hands were moving, his weapon was firing, but his mind was somewhere else entirely. "After," he kept thinking. He said after. 4 hours later, the Kreth retreated. 200 humans had held against 2,000. Kale-7 stood in the sudden silence and realized his hands were shaking, not from fear but from something he could not name. Pushpin Lesson 3. Your pain is real. Your exhaustion is real. Nobody is asking you to pretend otherwise. But there is a version of you that says, after I finish this, after I get through today, after I hold this line one more time. That version of you is stronger than you know. Find it. Use it. The after will come, but only if you keep going until it does. That night, Kale-7 sat beside Taurus. The camp was quieter now. People moved slowly, eating, treating wounds, writing messages home. Someone was playing a low, sad piece of music on a small instrument in the corner. Nobody talked much. But Kale-7 had a question burning in him that he could not put away. "Sergeant Taurus," he said. "Maya," she corrected without looking up. "Maya." He paused. "Why do you not retreat?" She was quiet for a moment, poking at the fire with a stick. "Sometimes we do," she said finally. "Retreating isn't the problem." "Then what is?" "Giving up." She looked at him. "There's a difference." "Explain it." She thought about it, really thought, which Kale-7 appreciated. She did not give him a quick answer. She gave him an honest one. "Retreating means you move back so you can fight better later," she said. "Giving up means you decide the fight is over." She paused. "We don't really do that second thing." "Why not?" "I don't know exactly." She looked at the fire again. "I think it's just built into us somehow. Every time in our history when things got completely impossible, someone kept going, and then someone else followed them. And it just became who we are." Kale-7 thought about the Vorthan concept of Caliph, the calculated point at which continuing was no longer rational. It was one of the first things taught in Vorthan military school. Know your limit. Respect your limit. Survive. He had always believed Caliph was wisdom. Sitting beside Taurus for the first time in his life, he wondered if it was also a cage. "Does it not scare you?" he asked. "Not knowing when to stop?" She smiled slowly. A tired smile but a real one. "It scares me every single day," she said. "But you know what scares me more?" "What?" "Stopping too early and never knowing if I could have made it." Kale-7 had no response to that. He sat with it in silence for a long time. The music from the corner was still playing. Low and slow and somehow both sad and hopeful at the same time. He decided that was the most human thing he had ever heard. Pushpin Lesson 4. There is a difference between a strategic retreat and giving up, and only you know which one you are doing. It is okay to step back, rest, regroup. But be honest with yourself. Are you resting, or are you quitting and calling it resting? The retreat that leads back to the fight is wisdom. The retreat that never ends is the only true defeat. 3 weeks into the assignment, Kale-7 began to notice something about Taurus that went beyond tactics. She remembered everything about everyone. She knew that Private Yusuf's mother was sick back home, and she asked about her every few days. She knew that young soldier Reyes had never been in real combat before this deployment, and she quietly put him next to experienced soldiers in every formation without ever making him feel managed. She knew that Dennis processed fear through humor, so she never shut him down when he made jokes before a fight, even bad ones. She carried all of them. Every single one. One afternoon, Kale-7 found her alone behind the supply depot, sitting on a crate, staring at nothing. She looked, for the first time since he had met her, completely empty. He almost walked away. Vorthons valued privacy and weakness. But something made him stop. "Maya," he said. She looked up. And for just a moment, one brief, unguarded moment, he saw everything she was holding. The weight of every decision. Every soldier she had lost. Everyone she was still trying to protect. Every night she had stayed awake running through scenarios to keep them alive one more day. Then she blinked and it was gone. "Hey Kale," she said normally. "What's up?" "Who carries you?" he asked. She blinked again. The question had surprised her. "What?" "You carry all of them," he said. "I have observed it. You remember their fears, their families, their habits. You arrange things so they do not break. You hold the weight so they can fight." He paused. "Who does that for you?" Torres looked at him for a long time. Then she looked down at her hands. "I do," she said quietly. "I do it for myself. That is a very heavy thing to do alone." She didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was lower. "Yeah," she said. "It is." They sat in silence for a while. Kale 7 did not leave. He did not speak. He simply stayed, which was, he was beginning to understand, sometimes the only thing one soldier could offer another. After a while, Torres straightened up. Took a breath. "Thanks, Kale," she said. He nodded once. Neither of them mentioned it again. But from that day forward, whenever Kale 7 noticed Torres sitting alone, he would walk over and sit nearby. He never made a thing of it. He simply refused to let her carry it completely alone. He had learned that from her, in a way. Pushpin Lesson 5. The strongest person in the room is usually the one nobody thinks to check on. They are so busy holding everyone else together that they have forgotten how to ask for help, or perhaps they never learned. Do not let the strong ones carry it alone. Sit beside them. You do not need to fix anything. Just refuse to let them disappear into the weight. That quiet presence is worth more than any words. The Gorith units arrived on a Tuesday morning. Kale 7 saw them first, 3 massive mechanical walkers on the horizon, each 140 meters tall, moving slowly and deliberately through the gray dust. Their armor was 2 feet thick. Their weapons could level a city block in seconds. Standard military doctrine across 17 species classified Gorith units as engagement-ending assets. Which meant, when they appear, the battle is over. Kale 7's Caliph activated automatically. Unwinnable, his training said clearly. Retreat. Survive. Report. He turned to say exactly this to Torres. She was already on the radio. "Listen up." Her voice went out across all channels, calm, focused, no wasted words. "I know what you're looking at. I know what every military textbook in the galaxy says right now. But I need you to think, what do those things have that we don't?" Silence across the channels. Then Reyes, young, still nervous Reyes, said quietly, "Armor?" "That's exactly right," Torres said. "Armor. Which means someone built them. Someone engineered every single piece of them. And anything engineered has a weakness. We just have to find it." Silence again. Then Dennis's voice crackled through, and Kale 7 could hear the grin in it even over the radio static. "I have an idea," Dennis said. "It's completely stupid." "Tell me," Torres said immediately. No hesitation. "We go under them." Long pause. "The undercarriage," Torres said, and Kale 7 could hear her thinking in real time. "They can't depress their weapons that low. The sensor arrays are on top. If we stay flat and close." "Boom," Dennis said simply. Another pause. "Do it," Torres said. "Everyone else gives them something to look at." "Dennis, take your team underneath." "Kale, you're with Dennis." Kale 7 stared at the approaching walkers. Every logical process in his mind said no. But his legs were already moving. What happened next defied every probability calculation Kale 7 had ever run. 12 humans crawled through smoke and debris, flat against the ground, underneath 3 40-meter walking weapons platforms, and planted charges on the only unarmored surface available. All 3 Gorith units went down within 4 minutes of each other. The ground shook with each collapse. Kale 7 lay in the dust, ears ringing, staring up at where the third walker had been standing seconds before. Dennis appeared beside him. Grinning. Covered in dust and blood. "Told you it was stupid," he said happily. Kale 7 had absolutely nothing to say. Pushpin Lesson 6. When every book, every expert, every calculation tells you that you have already lost, there is still one question left to ask. Have I looked at this from underneath? The solution is almost never where everyone is looking. It is in the place nobody has checked because they already decided the fight was over. Do not let someone else's conclusion become your reality. Look again. Look differently. Look where no one else is willing to go. For months later they lost Private Yusuf. It happened quickly, the way these things always do. One moment he was there, and then the chaos of a firefight, and then he was not. Torres was the one who told his unit. She stood in front of them, and she did not flinch, and she did not look away from any of them. But that night, Kale, 7 found her at the memorial board. She was writing his name. Slowly. Carefully. Like the act of writing it mattered. Like the weight she put into each letter was a small act of respect for the weight of his life. Kale, 7 stood beside her. When she finished, she stepped back and looked at the board. Yusuf's name was now among 43 others. I asked about his mother every week, Torres said quietly. He showed me her picture once. She looked exactly like him. Kale 7 said nothing. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently, she continued. Different formation. Different timing. Different. You could not have known, Kale 7 said. I know that, she said. I know that up here. She touched her head. It doesn't help. They were quiet for a while. On Vorthan, Kale 7 said eventually, we are taught to process loss through logic. A soldier who falls did so according to the statistical probability of their position. Grief is considered an inefficiency. Torres looked at him. That sounds lonely, she said. It is efficient, he said. But even as he said it, he heard how hollow it sounded. Torres looked back at the board. I think grief is how you know it mattered, she said softly. If it didn't hurt, it would mean it didn't mean anything. And it meant everything. She paused. He was a person. He had a mother who looks like him. He deserves to be missed properly. Kale 7 looked at the board. At 43 names. At the slow, deliberate way Torres had written the 44th. And for the first time in his 11-year military career, Kale 7 felt something crack open in his chest. Something that had been sealed shut since the first day of Vorthan training. He did not have a word for it in his language. He suspected the human word was grief. And he suspected, standing there in the cold, that Torres was right. It was not an inefficiency. It was proof that something had mattered. Pushpin Lesson 7. Do not rush your grief. Do not logic it away. Do not call it weakness or inefficiency or something to be processed and filed. When you lose something real, a person, a dream, a version of your life you believed in, the pain is not the problem. The pain is the proof. It is how you know it was real. Let it hurt the way it deserves to hurt. Then carry the name carefully the way it was written, like the weight of every letter matters. Because it does. The war ended on a cold morning in the 7th month. The Kreth Empire sent formal surrender terms to the Galactic Coalition. Every species that had fought celebrated in their own way. The Vorthans filed orderly victory reports. The Drakai held ceremonial silences. Other species exchanged formal diplomatic communications. The humans made food and stayed up all night talking. Kale 7 sat with them one last time. Around the fire. Torres beside him. Dennis across from him, already deep into some argument about mangoes again. Young Reyes, who was not so nervous anymore, laughing loudly at something someone had said. Kale 7 looked at each of them in the firelight. He tried to calculate what they had accomplished in 7 months. The battles won. The lines held. The impossible moments made possible. The odds that had been, again and again, completely irrelevant to what these people decided to do. He could not reduce it to numbers. He had tried. It simply would not fit. Before he left the next morning, Torres walked him to the transport. She held out her hand. He shook it, properly this time. Not stiffly. You were a good soldier, Kale, she said. You were a confusing one, he replied. She laughed. Loud and real. You know, she said, you say confusing like it's a bad thing. I no longer believe it is, he said honestly. She smiled at that. A real smile. A tired one. The kind that had seen too much and chosen to smile anyway. Take care of yourself out there, she said. And you, he said. He boarded the transport. He did not look back, Vorthan custom. But he sat by the window and as the ship lifted, he looked down at the base growing smaller beneath him. A group of humans standing in the dust, waving upward at a ship they could no longer clearly see. Waving anyway. Back on Vorthan he gave his report to High Command. He described the battles. The strategies. The outcome. All of it precise, detailed, accurate. Then General Mora leaned forward. And the humans, the general said. What did you learn? Kale 7 was quiet for a moment. He thought about Torres writing Yusuf's name slowly on the memorial board. He thought about Dennis saying after. He thought about Reyes, nervous at the start, laughing at the end. He thought about laughter around a fire in the middle of a war. He thought about the night Torres asked him to stay without asking at all. Then he said, "They do not calculate the end. They simply refuse to arrive there." The general considered this. "Are they dangerous?" "Extraordinarily," Kale, 7 said. "But not in the way you mean. They are dangerous because they make everyone around them refuse to quit. It spreads. Like something in the air. You stand near a human long enough, and you start to believe that perhaps the fight is not over. Perhaps one more step is possible. Perhaps the thing everyone said was impossible is simply something nobody has tried correctly yet." The general was quiet. "Would you fight alongside them again?" he asked. Kale 7 thought of Torres. Of the fire. Of 44 names written like they mattered. "Without hesitation," he said. He paused. Then he added one last thing, not in his report but quietly, honestly, for himself as much as anyone. "They did not teach me how to win. They taught me why winning is worth attempting in the first place." Field Report Addendum, Kale, 7 4th and 3rd Legion, Year 7 of the Kreth conflict. "We don't retreat, we reload," and standing beside them neither did I. The end. Pushpin Lesson 8. You do not need to have all the strength. You do not need to be the one who never breaks. You just need to stand near someone who refuses to quit, and let it become contagious. The greatest thing one person can give another is not advice, not resources, not strategy. It is the living, breathing proof that continuing is possible. Be that proof for someone. And when you need it, find your Taurus. Find your fire. Find the people who laugh in the dark and write names like they matter and say, after, like they already know they will make it. Those people will save your life without ever knowing they did.